Any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king.
Gold alone does not command respect. Power does. And when young Tywin Lannister first looked upon the crumbling legacy of his house, he found little of either. Once, the Lannisters of Casterly Rock were the pride of the Westerlands, their wealth flowing from veins of gold deep beneath the mountain. But by the time Tywin came of age, that golden reputation had dulled into mockery. His father, Lord Tytos, was known not as a lion, but as a laughingstock, a weak-willed lord who lent freely, forgave debts carelessly, and tolerated insults that would have driven stronger men to war. Bannermen scoffed openly at him, some even renouncing their fealty to pledge themselves to the Tyrells of the Reach. Casterly Rock itself, seat of the mightiest bloodline in the West, had become a hollow court where sycophants and opportunists thrived. Into this mire stepped Tywin, a boy with a mind like sharpened steel and a pride too fierce to accept humiliation. He had witnessed strength and decisiveness at the royal court of Aegon V, where he squired in his youth. He had befriended a prince, Aerys, the future king, and already tasted the brutal politics of war in the Ninepenny Kings campaign. And when he returned home, it was with a single, unshakable conviction: House Lannister would never be laughed at again. This is the story of Tywin's master plan, a ruthless, decades-long game of power, blood, and legacy that transformed a weakened house into the most feared family in Westeros. The Lion Awakens. Tywin Lannister's first true test came not in his father's crumbling court, but on distant shores. At only 18, he joined his uncle and brothers in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, the final gasp of the Blackfire pretenders. Though the war itself was small in scale, it was a crucible for many who would later shape Westeros: Barristan Selmy, Brynden Tully, even young men from Dorne and the Stormlands. Tywin entered as a youth, but he left with a reputation. He fought with precision and severity, earning his knighthood and, most symbolically, the honor of knighting his closest friend, Prince Aerys Targaryen. It was an early glimpse of the ruthlessness and pragmatism that would define him. But Tywin's triumph abroad only sharpened his anger at what awaited him at home. Lord Tytos had allowed Lannister prestige to rot. Debts were ignored, bannermen scoffed at Casterly Rock, and rival houses, Rhaen and Tarbeck chief among them, mocked Lannister weakness with open defiance. Tywin would not tolerate it. Still technically only heir, he seized power in practice. He called in debts, demanded obedience, and when defiance came, he answered with fire and steel. The rebellion of House Rhaen and House Tarbeck was crushed with pitiless speed. The Rhaens, who had tunneled their stronghold deep into the earth, found their halls flooded until no voice was left alive. It was not merely victory, it was annihilation. The song, "The Rains of Castamere," would echo across Westeros for generations, a reminder that Tywin Lannister's wrath spared none. When at last Tywin stood as unquestioned master of the Westerlands, he wasted no time cleansing his father's shame. Courtiers who had fattened themselves on Tytos's indulgence were dismissed. His father's mistress, once treated like a queen, was cast aside without ceremony. Every banner house, from the proudest knightly line to the humblest vassal, understood the new order. Loyalty enforced by terror, respect demanded not through charm or persuasion, but through absolute power. The lion had awakened, and the West trembled beneath its roar. For the first time in decades, House Lannister commanded not laughter, but fear. And for Tywin, this was only the beginning, the king's hand. Fate played directly into Tywin's hands. His old companion, Prince Aerys, rose to the Iron Throne far sooner than expected, and in a moment that stunned the court, he named Tywin Lannister his hand. At just 20 years old, Tywin became the youngest man ever to hold the office. What followed was a golden age of order and efficiency, though forged in steel rather than mercy. Tywin reversed the populist reforms of Aegon V, rewarding merchants, restoring crown finances, and guaranteeing the Iron Bank its due with the strength of Lannister gold. Corruption, inefficiency, and rebellion were crushed with cold precision. The young lion ruled the realm with the same ruthless pragmatism he had used in the Westerlands. And though Aerys wore the crown, it was Tywin Lannister who held the reins of power. But the bond between king and hand was not built to last. Tywin's marriage to Joanna Lannister, his beloved cousin, should have strengthened his position. Instead, it ignited Aerys's jealousy. At their wedding, the king's liberties toward Joanna were an open insult, and soon after, she was dismissed from the queen's service. Tywin swallowed the slight, but the wound festered. From then on, Aerys began to treat his hand less as a friend and more as a rival. At court, he mocked him. In council, he undermined him. When Joanna died, giving birth to Tyrion, Tywin was left hollowed, grieving, enraged, and shackled to a king whose barbs cut deeper with each passing year. Despite the strain, Tywin pressed forward with his grand design. His ambition was clear: to raise the Lannisters to the pinnacle of Westeros through marriage to the royal line. When Rhaegar Targaryen reached manhood, Tywin proposed that Cersei should wed him. It was the perfect match, beauty and gold binding themselves to dragons. But Aerys rejected the idea with scorn. "The Lannisters are servants," he spat, denying both Cersei's hand for Rhaegar and Jaime's request to squire for the prince. The insult was devastating. For Tywin, this was not merely a refusal. It was the king himself declaring war on Lannister ambition. From that moment, Tywin's patience began to unravel. He had risen higher than any Lannister before him, yet Aerys would ensure he could climb no higher. The game had changed, and Tywin knew it. Ambitions for the future. For Tywin, the future of House Lannister lay in his children. A marriage between Cersei and Prince Rhaegar would have secured his bloodline a claim to the Iron Throne itself. But Aerys's rejection cut deep, and worse still, the king mocked Tywin openly before the court. The insult lingered like poison. Cersei remained unwed. Jaime kept from the prince's service, and Tywin's dream of binding lions to dragons slipped through his fingers. Yet Tywin's resolve did not weaken. If the king would not grant him power through alliance, then he would find another path. He continued to govern the realm effectively, building the Lannisters' wealth and influence. But beneath the order he imposed, distrust began to coil tighter around his relationship with Aerys. The breaking point came at Duskendale. When Lord Darklyn rebelled against the crown, Tywin counseled patience and negotiation. But Aerys, bristling at any sign of restraint, marched himself into the rebels' arms and was taken hostage. Tywin responded with the full might of the crown's forces, surrounding the town and demanding the king's release. Days stretched into weeks, and still Aerys rotted in a dungeon. Tywin prepared for a final assault, knowing it might cost the king his life. Only Barristan Selmy's daring rescue prevented a bloodbath. Yet instead of gratitude, Aerys's paranoia exploded. He became convinced that Tywin had delayed on purpose, that his loyal hand had been waiting for Rhaegar to replace him on the throne. The seeds of rivalry had blossomed into open mistrust, and when Aerys spitefully forced Jaime into the Kingsguard, robbing Tywin of his heir and chaining him forever to the Iron Throne, the insult was unbearable. Tywin resigned, retreating to Casterly Rock, with the bitter knowledge that his years of service had only strengthened a king who despised him. The lion had tasted the limits of loyalty. Now, Tywin would bide his time and wait for the realm itself to shift. The lion waits. When Tywin left King's Landing, he did not leave his ambitions behind. From the gilded halls of Casterly Rock, he watched the realm fracture into open rebellion. Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, Jon Arryn and the Tullys raised banners against the crown, while the Reach and Dawn held firm for the Targaryens. The war was chaos, uncertain and bloody, exactly the kind of storm Tywin Lannister refused to enter blindly. Many accused him of cowardice or indecision. The Westerlands remained silent while others bled, but Tywin was neither hesitant nor afraid. He was calculating. Let others gamble their lives and legacies. He would wait until the winner was clear, and then he would ensure that House Lannister emerged not just safe, but stronger than ever. That moment came at the Battle of the Trident. Rhaegar Targaryen, champion of the Crown's cause, was slain by Robert Baratheon. The Dornish were broken, the Reach distracted, and the rebellion suddenly had momentum. It could not be denied. Tywin moved instantly. He raised his armies and marched for King's Landing, not as friend to the king he had once served, but as a predator sensing its prey's final weakness. When Aerys ordered the gates opened, expecting salvation, Tywin's soldiers poured in like a flood. King's Landing was sacked with brutal efficiency. The royal family's last hope, Elia Martell and her children, were slaughtered, their bodies presented as tokens of loyalty to Robert Baratheon. It was ruthless, it was treacherous, and it was exactly what the moment required. In a single stroke, Tywin severed his ties to the Targaryens and offered Robert both victory and legitimacy. Others whispered of dishonor, but Robert, bloodied and desperate to consolidate his rule, could not refuse the gift. The Lannisters had arrived late to the war, but they would stand first in its spoils. Victory of the Lannisters. Robert Baratheon had won his crown on the battlefield, but even kings need allies. His closest supporters, Arryn, Stark and Tully, were strong, but none had the wealth, armies or influence to stabilize a realm bled dry by war. Tywin Lannister knew this better than anyone. And so, when Robert sought a bride to legitimize his new dynasty, only one choice gleamed with both beauty and political weight: Cersei Lannister. Tywin offered her hand, and Robert accepted. It was the match Tywin had long sought for his daughter, not with Rhaegar, as once planned, but with the man who now sat the Iron Throne. The lioness became queen, and through her, Tywin placed his bloodline in direct line of succession. But Tywin was not content with a single victory. He wove his power deeper into the capital, filling Robert's court with loyalists and kin. Pycelle whispered on the small council. Jaime, though trapped in white, still stood near the king. Elyn Payne, once a Lannister bannerman, was raised to the role of royal executioner. Lancel and Tyrell Lannister served as squires, while other allies quietly advanced under Tywin's patronage. By the time the dust of rebellion had settled, one truth was clear. Though Robert Baratheon wore the crown, the weight of power lay in Lannister hands. The Golden Lions had survived the storm, and now they ruled its aftermath. The waiting game. Tywin Lannister did not need the spotlight to wield power. After Robert's rebellion, he returned to Casterly Rock, leaving his pawns in King's Landing to whisper and watch. From the shadows, he rebuilt the Lannister armies, filled the treasury to bursting, and waited. He knew Robert Baratheon would destroy himself. The new king was bold in war, but careless in rule, a drunkard, a womanizer, a man who spent gold faster than he could mint it. Tywin needed only patience. Sooner or later, Robert would stumble, and when he did, the lions would pounce. Every soldier drilled in the Westerlands, every coin stockpiled, every alliance quietly nurtured. All of it was preparation for the day when a Lannister grandson would sit the Iron Throne. Tywin had transformed his house from mocked to mighty. Now, he waited for fate to hand him the crown itself. The question of the plan. So was it destiny or design? Did Tywin Lannister truly chart every step of his family's rise? Or was he simply the sharpest predator in a realm of chaos? On one hand, his vision is undeniable. He seized power from his weak father, crushed rebellion in the West, ruled the Seven Kingdoms with ruthless efficiency, and married his bloodline into the royal family. By the end of Robert's rebellion, the Lannisters stood unmatched, wealthiest in coin, strongest in army, and closest to the Iron Throne. Yet much of his triumph was born not of control, but of opportunity. Aerys's madness, Robert's recklessness, Rhaegar's death. These were storms Tywin did not summon, but he navigated them with unmatched precision. Perhaps that is the truth of his legacy, not a flawless master plan, but a mind cold and cunning enough to bend chance itself to Lannister advantage. The lion always roared last.